Joining me now, Frank Luntz. He's a pollster and CEO of Luntz Global, and Howard Kurtz, the host of Mediabuzz. Good to see you both. So, Frank, it hasn't been a great week for Donald Trump. It was a decent week for Ted Cruz, as he pointed out, and yet, you know, Trump, despite his missteps, still has the momentum, and even though it's not looking great for him in Wisconsin, is looking really good for him in New York, which has a whole lot of delegates and comes a couple weeks later.
Well, let's focus on Wisconsin first. They're very sophisticated voters. They went through 3 straight elections to protect Scott Walker. They're conservatives in policy and ideology, not just behavior, and they care about what a candidate thinks and what they say. The key in Wisconsin is that you can't just offer platitudes. You have to offer specifics. These voters have been through this over the last 4-6 years, and they expect candidates who say what they mean and mean what they say. These are bad days for Donald Trump over the last 96 hours because he has seemed to be inconsistent. He's had to walk back several statements, but what is key here, and Tucker's right, is that if either Cruz or Kasich are seen to disrespect Trump voters, they will hurt themselves. The key is to understand and reflect that anger, reflect that sense of betrayal. Challenge Trump for not coming through on the issues, for not being specific, and for flip-flopping. But do not, and I emphasize this, do not criticize the people who've come to him, because they went to him for a reason. They wanted to say to Washington, I'm fed up, I'm angry, and I'm not going to take it anymore. Those 2 candidates, Kasich and Cruz, have to communicate that over the next 72 hours if they want to maximize their vote on Tuesday.
And you see that, Howie, in the sort of the numbers there, because every election night we see Trump wins in many states overwhelmingly, at least in terms of, you know, the other versus the other candidates, even though the voters who are voting for him do not think he can win in November. If electability is your most important thing, you still might vote for Trump even if you think he's unelectable. I mean, that's because they're looking to send a message.
Looking to send a message, and Trump energizes them. But look, he is going through the worst stretch of his campaign, fueled by his own missteps, especially on abortion, because it feeds a narrative pushed by, 2 narratives actually, pushed by his media detractors. 1, that he's hostile to women, and 2, that he's shaky on policy. But I do have to say this. Any seasoned politician wouldn't answer a hypothetical question from Chris Matthews. What if abortion were illegal? Would you then punish women? And if he did, he would have a carefully calibrated, precisely worded answer to avoid stepping on the landmine. Well, Trump, not being a professional politician, stepped on the landmine, and his fans love the fact that it doesn't sound like a politician. You step on the landmine, and then you go to CBS's John Dickerson, and you still have debris, you're in a hole.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, the reason people aren't giving him a pass on this, Frank, is because it's abortion. It's not some esoteric issue that people don't discuss in you know, presidential politics. It's kind of high on the list. And, you know, there have been some people advising Trump for months to study, just study, and you would be a much stronger candidate.
But it's not really an issue. It's a principle. It defines who you are and what you're about, regardless of which side you're on. And so it's very hard to study a principle. You either have it or you don't. And the one thing that Republicans in these remaining states are going to communicate is that it is not just these specific issues. It's who you are as a person, what you're about, what's inside you. So when the chips are down, they know that you're going to come out the right way.
Do you believe these suggestions, Howie, that this is not just a terrible week for Donald Trump, but as some of his detractors say, the beginning of the end for him?
Well, I would caution everybody that we've heard the beginning of the end at least 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 times in this campaign, and Trump has a way of bouncing back. But it does feel like he is at a point where, you know, he was riding so high a couple of weeks ago with all those victories, where he needs to make a pivot to a sharper focus and better answers on policy, on sounding more presidential and not responding to every person who ticks him off on cable news. And the abortion misstep, I mean, even though, you know, he cleaned it up with a statement, and they've done that again tonight with CBS, shows that he's not there yet, and I think some of his people will like him to get there. Now, if Ted Cruz beats him in Wisconsin, it's only 42 delegates, but psychologically, I think it'll be the most important state that Ted Cruz has won, because it blunts that momentum. And as you were saying, New York, then a couple of weeks later, it's been a long time before Donald Trump can make a comeback if indeed he loses Wisconsin.
And then what is the media narrative in those 2 weeks when there's not a contest? It's great to see you both. Thanks for being here.
My pleasure.